I knew something had gone seriously wrong when my neighbor knocked on my door holding her phone, like she was about to accuse me of something I didn't even know was a crime. She wasn't angry. She wasn't confused either. She looked unsettled, like someone who had been dealing with a problem that refused to make sense no matter how many times she replayed it in her head before she spoke. I felt that uncomfortable tightening in my chest, the kind that usually comes right before you realize a harmless habit has quietly crossed into dangerous territory. She asked me straight out if I was the one making bird noises through the wall at certain times every day. I laughed automatically, already embarrassed, already preparing to downplay it. But she didn't react. She unlocked her phone, turned the screen toward me, and pressed play. The video showed her parrot pacing inside its cage, not hopping, not playing, pacing, back and forth, over and over, stopping every few seconds to stare at the wall, separating our apartments. My wall. The bird let out a strained, sharp sound, then went silent, completely still, like it was waiting for a reply that never came. Watching it made my stomach sink. The bird didn't look aggressive. It looked distressed. That was the moment it hit me. Whatever this was, it was no longer harmless. I live in an old apartment building where sound travels to isolate. Privacy feels optional. You learn things about your neighbors without meaning to. You know who cooks late, who argues on the phone, who watches TV too loudly. And for months, I knew exactly when the parrot woke up. Every morning, right around the same time, the noise started, high-pitched, sharp sounds that cut straight through sleep and landed somewhere behind my eyes. At first, I tried to ignore it. Then I tried earplugs. Then I tried resentment. None of it worked. The bird didn't care about my patience or my schedule. One morning, half asleep and already irritated, I made a noise back. It wasn't planned. It just came out. A mock squawk, born entirely out of frustration. The bird stopped. Then it responded. I froze, suddenly aware of how ridiculous I must have sounded. But there was something about the pause before the bird answered that felt intentional, like it had been listening. I shook it off and told myself it was nothing. The next morning, it happened again. This time, the bird started it. I answered without thinking, noise for noise, whistle for whistle. The exchange was brief, but structured, almost deliberate. I told myself it was harmless, even funny in a tired sort of way. Over the next couple of weeks, it turned into a routine neither of us ever agreed to. Sometimes the bird would start calling, and I'd respond automatically. Sometimes I'd initiate it while cooking or pacing my apartment, not even realizing what I was doing until I heard the response. The sounds became familiar, predictable, and slowly my irritation faded. The bird stopped feeling like an enemy. It became something closer to a noisy roommate I tolerated with sarcasm. I didn't think about consequences. I didn't think about attachment. I just thought I had found a way to cope. Then work got busy. Headphones went on. Days blurred together. I stopped responding at first. I didn't notice. The silence felt like relief, but it didn't last. My neighbor explained everything carefully, like she didn't want to scare me off. She told me the parrot used to live with another bird years ago. They had bonded closely. When the other bird died, this one changed. It became quieter, withdrawn. Over time, it adjusted. She thought that chapter was over. Until recently, she said the parrot now waited by the wall during specific times of the day, times that matched our conversations. If nothing happened, it became restless. It paced. It screamed. It refused treats. It wasn't misbehaving. It was reacting. That realization hit harder than I expected. I had never seen the bird, never touched it, never agreed to anything, and yet, somehow, I had become part of its routine. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say this wasn't my responsibility. But standing there, watching the video, I couldn't deny what I was seeing. The bird wasn't confused. It was waiting. She asked me to do something uncomfortable. She wanted me to make the sounds again while she offered the bird food just to see if it helped. Every instinct told me to say no. Instead, I followed her into her apartment, feeling like I was stepping into a situation that had quietly grown beyond my control. The parrot reacted instantly. The moment it heard my voice, it stopped pacing. I made a few noises, painfully aware of how absurd this all was. The bird relaxed. It ate. It played with a toy.com and focused. Like a switch had been flipped, my neighbor's shoulders dropped with visible relief. That relief changed everything. She thanked me, then hesitated. Then she asked if I could keep doing it. Just a few minutes a day. She even suggested times like we were negotiating something fragile that depended on consistency to survive. I agreed, because saying no felt worse than agreeing ever could. Now, my days include deliberate pauses where I stand near the wall and make sounds for a bird I can't see. I don't set alarms, but I keep track of time anyway. If I'm late, I feel uneasy. When I travel, I worry about what happens in my absence. I never meant for this to happen. What started as irritation turned into responsibility without asking my permission. And now that it exists, ignoring it feels like a choice with consequences. Sometimes I wonder what would happen if I stopped again. Would the bird adjust, like before, or did I replace something that can't be replaced twice? That question sits in the back of my mind more than I'd like to admit. At night, after the sounds fade and the apartment goes quiet, I think about how easily this happened, how a careless habit became something another living thing depended on. I didn't want this connection. I didn't ask for it, but it exists anyway. And now that it does, walking away doesn't feel simple anymore.